April 1945. The Reich was dying. Allied armies pressed in from the west while the Red Army thundered from the east. City by city, the empire collapsed. Once proud garrisons surrendered, roads filled with refugees, and the black banners of the Reich fell into ash. In Berlin, Adolf Hitler clung to a nightmare. Deep inside his Führer bunker, he barked orders to divisions that no longer existed. Maps were crowded with phantom units. Entire corps that had been annihilated weeks earlier were still moved around with trembling hands. He shouted at generals, demanded counterattacks from shattered armies, and promised that Steiner ES divisions would come to the rescue, though Steiner had no men left to give. Yet the Nazi leadership demanded resistance. The capital would not surrender. It would be turned into a fortress of rubble and blood. The Red Army prepared its blow with overwhelming might. Marshal Zhukov's First Belarusian Front and Marshal Konev's First Ukrainian Front converged with more than 2.5 million men. They brought with them 6,000 tanks, 40,000 artillery pieces, and skies darkened by waves of Soviet aircraft. The roar of engines filled the air from dawn to dusk. Against this steel storm, Germany could scrape together no more than 800,000 defenders. Many were Volkssturm militia, old men in armbands, boys of the Hitler Youth armed with Panzerfausts. Others were remnants of shattered Wehrmacht divisions, foreign SS volunteers, and fanatics ready to die with their Führer. Some had not eaten properly in days. Many carried rifles older than themselves. On April 16th, the Soviets struck. Their offensive began with the greatest bombardment of the entire war. Thousands of guns roared in unison, reducing the Silo Heights east of Berlin into fire and smoke. The earth shook, villages vanished under shells, and the horizon glowed as if the world itself had caught fire. Locals said the ground moved like the sea beneath their feet. Yet, when Soviet infantry advanced, German machine guns still spat death. The defenses had survived. The battle for the Silo Heights became a slaughterhouse. Tanks bogged down in swampy fields, artillery shattered waves of men, and rivers ran red with blood. For 4 days, Zhukov hurled divisions forward, burning through reserves at a terrifying pace. Commanders wrote of battalions reduced to companies within hours. Finally, the heights fell. The road to Berlin lay open. Inside the city, preparations became frantic. Streets were barricaded with rubble, buildings fortified into bunkers. Children as young as 12 clutched Panzerfausts in their trembling hands, waiting for tanks in alleyways. Some wrote farewell letters to their mothers before taking positions. Old men carried rifles from the Great War, digging trenches they knew they would never leave. Some wore medals from 1914 pinned to their coats, reminders of a different Germany. Still, the call from Hitler's bunker was clear: fight to the last bullet, die in place. Posters warned that surrender was treason, desertion meant hanging. As Soviet columns reached the outskirts, Berlin descended into chaos. Artillery pounded without pause. Entire districts collapsed into rubble. Fires raged uncontrolled and smoke blotted out the spring sky. The smell of cordite, brick dust, and burning wood clung to the city. The screams of civilians echoed in shattered streets. Mothers huddled with children in basements that shook with every impact. Some prayed aloud, others sat in silence. Soviet soldiers advanced house by house, room by room. Flamethrowers cleared stairwells, grenades rattled through doorways, and machine guns chattered from every ruin. Progress was measured in meters. Each block consumed lives in endless waves. Commanders marked gains in yards, not miles. Soviet tank crews welded bed frames and scrap metal onto their armor, desperate to shield themselves from Panzerfausts. Some tanks carried logs strapped to their hulls as improvised armor. German children crawled through sewers to carry messages to units already doomed. Entire squads vanished underground, only to emerge into enemy lines. In the Berlin Zoo, starving lions and elephants broke free, running terrified through streets that thundered with artillery. Soldiers wrote of wolves howling amid the ruins. By April 25th, the Red Army had encircled Berlin completely. The city became a cauldron, boiling in fire and despair. Above it all, Hitler raged. He moved phantom armies across maps, screamed at generals, and clung to fantasies of rescue. He spoke of miracles, of alliances, of divisions that no longer existed. but the reality above his bunker was ruin. The last act of the European war had begun. As April waned, the Soviet noose tightened. District after district was consumed in the storm. Hospitals became battlegrounds, their wounded left to die as soldiers fought among shattered wards. Nurses armed themselves with pistols. Churches burned, their bells silenced forever, while shells shattered monuments into dust. Landmarks that had stood for centuries vanished in minutes. On April 29th, the Reichstag loomed as the ultimate prize. Once the symbol of German power, it had become a fortress. SS diehards and conscripts filled its ruins, stacking sandbags in stairwells, mounting machine guns in the shadows of its columns. Every floor became a killing ground. The Soviets launched their assault with savage determination. Floor by floor, grenade by grenade, they stormed the building. Entire companies vanished in the smoke. Men fought in darkness, using knives, pistols, and bare hands when ammunition ran dry. Some wrote their names on the walls before falling. At last, on May 2nd, the red banner was hoisted above the Reichstag. The image became eternal, a symbol of Nazi Germany's destruction. But beneath the city, another drama ended. On April 30th, Adolf Hitler put a pistol to his temple. His empire, promised to last 1,000 years, had survived less than 12. His corpse, doused in gasoline, was burned in the garden above the bunker. Charred remains were all that remained of the dictator. Witnesses later said the smell lingered for hours. Yet even after Hitler's death, resistance continued. Fanatical SS units and Hitler Youth fought with suicidal resolve. Some squads refused orders to surrender, preferring annihilation. Soviet losses were staggering. More than 80,000 killed and 250,000 wounded. Commanders admitted entire regiments had been bled white. German casualties were catastrophic. Hundreds of thousands dead, captured or buried beneath rubble. Many were civilians caught in crossfire, buried alive in basements. For Berlin civilians, the ordeal was apocalyptic. Starvation stalked families, bombardment crushed shelters, and death walked openly in the streets. Survivors later spoke of canyons of corpses, where bodies lay unburied among ruins. Dogs roamed the streets, feeding on the dead. Children were seen clutching Panzerfausts taller than themselves, waiting to fire at tanks before being cut down. Some stood guard over their parents' corpses until Soviet soldiers arrived. Families suffocated in basements as buildings collapsed above them, leaving entire generations erased in an instant. In some streets, silence followed only after every voice was extinguished. Berlin was not just a battlefield, it was an apocalypse, the final crucible of the Reich. For the Soviets, the city's fall was vengeance for years of agony. An echo of Stalingrad and Leningrad answered in blood. Officers told their men they were avenging mothers, sisters, entire nations. For the Germans, it was the end of their empire, the collapse of their illusions, the moment when the 1,000-year Reich turned to ashes. When the guns fell silent, Europe was transformed. Nazi Germany was gone, but the ruins of Berlin remained, filled with graves, haunted by ghosts, etched with scars that would never fade. Travelers would walk among rubble for years, seeing the bones of a city laid bare. From the ashes of the Reichstag rose both triumph and tragedy, the final testament of the Second World War in Europe.